Scene 1, 2. This is the story of Bonnie Clyde and all the good stuff. And 3, 2, 1. Alright, welcome back. We are going to... No welcome backs. Edit that out, Mary. 3, 2, 1. Alright, let's get started. We're going to start with Bonnie. Bonnie was actually born Bonnie Elizabeth Parker, October 10th. Let me make sure I have that right. Throughout this session, guys, you're gonna see me with my glasses on and off because I don't like to give you guys a glare because I love y'all and I want to be one-on-one with you. So just remember, okay? No, it wasn't October 10th. My apologies. It was October 1st, 1910. She was born Bonnie Elizabeth Parker. She was born in Rowena, I think is how you would say it, Texas. She's the second of 3 children. Let's see, her father was a bricklayer, but he died when Bonnie was 4 years old. So her dad actually died when she was pretty young. As he widowed the mom, she moved her family back to her parents' home in Cement City, and it's like an industrial suburb at that time in West Dallas area, where she worked as a seamstress. As an adult, Bonnie actually wrote poems. She was known for writing poems. That's something that I think is very cool because I think it's such a private thing that she did in her spare time. So that's just something about her that I wanted to give you guys as a nugget. She also wrote, let me see, okay, she wrote some poems, but some of them were like kind of known. It's The Story of the Suicide Sow and The Trail's End, and later more commonly known as The Story of Bonnie and Clyde. Kind of like her version of The Trail End in a poem, I guess you could say. She was a bright child, for sure. They said she was very smart. She was one of those kids, though, who like thrived on attention. She loved like theater arts and things like that. Like she dreamed of being an actress. Her second year in high school, she met Roy Thornton. This is around, okay, yeah, so she was 15 at this time when she meets Roy Thornton. Like we said, she was one of those children and kids, guys. Give me a break. I'm giving you the goods. She was a child who thrived on attention, but also enjoyed putting on a show, right? Okay, so when she's about 15, she meets Roy. I want to say Thornton. It says Thornton, but there's an N in between. So if the N is silent, guys, just give me the credit, okay? Now, the couple dropped out of school and got married. Mind you, this is let me make sure I say this right. 1926. Them two drop out. Okay, so she meets Roy Thornton. She's 15. She drops out. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, they say 6 days before her 16th birthday. They dropped out. They got married, and their marriage was kind of, yes, guys, take it in. She was not married to Clyde. Okay, let's just get that out there. Let's just air that out there for the world, guys. Bonnie was married, not to Clyde. So when she was 15, she dropped out of school and got married to this guy named Roy Thornton. Now, their marriage was shortly kind of lived as far as spending time together because he actually, let me make sure I say this correctly. He actually had a run-in with the law, so, you know, he had to go to jail. Let's see. And then, okay, so this is I think this is so wild. So I'm gonna just tell you guys what I actually found out. So they were never divorced. They got married when they were 15. When she was 15, about to be 16. They drop out. He was absent in their marriage because he got in trouble with the law. So apparently she liked bad boys. Okay. Anyways, she winds up. Like they said, they never got divorced. Their paths never crossed again after January in 1929. Now, they were married in 1926, 26, 27, 28, 29. So about 3 years. 3 years in that time, there was a marriage between them two, and then he goes to jail. After that, he never saw her again. He says as of January 1929, he never really saw her again. But they do say that, I'm going to give you this one early because I was going to tell you this at the end, but I'm going to tell you right now because this is just too juicy and too good. She was actually wearing Roy Thornton's wedding ring that he gave her when she died. I was like, excuse me? What? You know, as a woman, we get it. Guys, sorry, but yeah. So she marries this guy. 3 years, you know, their marriage is, I don't know, up, down, I don't know what's going on. They don't really have too much detail about it, but she winds up, he winds up going to jail. Says he never saw her after January 1929. And then, but when, you know, the ending of her life came, she was still wearing his ring. So, just gonna throw that one out there for you guys. Let's see, they've interviewed her, that husband. They had interviewed that guy while she was on the run with Clyde or whatever. And they have had said that in the newspapers, they had quoted him saying that, here it is. So when they asked him, like, when he heard of the death, like, they went to go, you know, interview him, of course, her husband. And, you know, the newspaper always wants something juicy. They asked him, like, how does he feel about how she died, you know? And his quote to the newspaper, as a bad guy, it was, like, flawless for me. Like, this is something you would have probably heard. It says that when they went to go see him, it says, "I'm glad they jumped out like they did. It's much better than being caught." Mind you, he says it's from prison, wherever he was at the time. So yeah. Now, he actually, let's see, he was sentenced to 5 years for robbery, and Thornton, her ex-husband, her husband, was sentenced for 5 years for robbery in 1933. And after attempting several prison breaks, after attempting to get out multiple times, I guess the last time he tried to escape, he was killed. Actually in Huntsville State Prison. For those of you guys who are from Texas, everybody knows about Huntsville, and it's not really because of this, but I mean, Huntsville, if you know the prison system, is known for like being a very harsh prison sometimes, because it's just like one where people go and just kind of get transferred out. So, with that being said, Huntsville Prison was open over there at that time. So her husband had a marriage with her a couple years. He goes to jail, and then I guess while he's in jail, let's see, hold on. Okay. I just want to make sure I had the good details for you guys. So he winds up passing away later because he's trying to escape a robbery, but this was in October 1937. This is well over the time then. This was after Bonnie and Clyde. But that's the story of her husband, wrapped up real quick for you guys in her life. So let's get back to Bonnie. Bonnie drops out at 15, marries this guy, only has a very short time with him, and then, now mind you, she is a dropout, okay? I'm going to leave it there, and then I'm going to get into Clyde, and then I'm going to get into how they met, because if I continue here, it's going to kind of squibble itself in together. So we're going to stop here for her. So we know that she, you know, I don't know why I was going to say her papa, but her daddy died when she was 4, leaving her mom to become a single mom. She becomes a seamstress, the mother does, and then she gets married in a love ceremony, I guess. I don't know. She gets married when she's 15. She drops out. She gets with this guy. She spends very minimal time with him within those 3 years. And then, like he explains, he never saw her after January 1929. Now, mind you, keep that date in mind and keep this guys in your mind, because now we're going to get into Clyde. Clyde was born Clyde Chestnut Barrow. I don't want to say that wrong. I'm sorry, Barrow. Clyde Chestnut Barrow. He was born in 1909 into a poor farming family in the town of Tellico in Elise County, Texas. He was the 5th of 7 children of Henry Basil Barrow. That was his daddy, Henry. And Cummy Talitha Walker was his mom. The family moved to Dallas in the early 1920s as a part of like a migration to a rural area to this city, where many settled in the urban slums of West Dallas. I guess at the time, in that time and era, it was like what you would consider to be the slums. So as you know, they're moving in, they're kind of moving into what people would call like the slums, the bad area, whatever, of West Dallas, Texas. Now, let's see. Now, when they moved to Dallas, it says that they lived the first few months in West Dallas, living under their own like wagon, in their wagon, until they got enough money to buy a tent. He was actually, let's see, Clyde was actually arrested he was first arrested in late 1926. He was 17. So he got arrested when he was 17. So around where this woman over here is getting married, he's getting arrested. After running from the police when they confronted him over a rental car that he had failed to return on time. So at age 17, this is his first arrest, and it's because he failed to return a rental car. I didn't even know they had rental cars then, but I'm grateful that I know now. It's definitely different. His second arrest was with his brother. His brother was Buck Barrow. Soon after, for possession of stolen turkey. I'm not gonna lie, guys. This is in Texas. You know, cattle happens a lot here, but turkeys was not something I was aware that people stole. Mind you, they are in the slums. They probably didn't have too much money. Maybe they were stealing something to eat, but I couldn't help but kind of giggle because, like, I'm from Texas. I definitely get the understanding of needing a food, I guess. I don't know, but I just thought it was kind of understanding that how they say that, you know, this family kind of lived a little bit poor, or was poor, and him and his brother this time. Now he's not by himself this time. It's him and his brother get put in jail because they had possession of stolen turkeys. Is how it is explained. It says he had a couple of legitimate jobs from 1927 to 1929, but he also was known to crack safes. So Clyde was not only here and there in trouble, but he kind of had some regular jobs. He was also known to crack safes. He liked to rob convenience stores and steal cars. He met Bonnie when she was 19. All right. Let me just make sure I got everything down for him before I get into how they met, because this is just so good stuff. This is just really good. Okay, so I'm going to pause on Clyde and we're going to get into how they met, because this kind of runs into how the notes that I have here kind of run into how they winded everything started between them. So, in January 5th of 1930, Bonnie was staying with a girlfriend, like not a girlfriend, but like a friend who was her gal pal, you know? And apparently this friend was recovering from a broken arm. So I'm assuming that they say that she was out of work and living with her girlfriend who was recovering from a broken arm, right? Okay. So now they're saying that that was her friend, but it was also Clyde's friend, and that's how they met. While Bonnie was staying with her friend who was recovering from a broken arm and just, you know, out of work hanging out with her, Clyde came by and kind of just dropped by, and he apparently saw Bonnie in the kitchen while she was making hot chocolate. I think that was just I think that was so like sweet of them to say, like to make sure that they put in that he saw her in the kitchen and she was making hot chocolate. So apparently this friend of theirs was both of their friends, but he just happened to drop by, I'm assuming just to see how she was doing or whatever, you know, and Bonnie just happened to be there that day and she was making hot chocolate. So that's originally how they say that they met, that this is how they actually ran into, it was a mutual friend. They literally met each other that way. Now, after they met, it said that for the next few weeks they were spending lots of time together, but that time together kind of got cut short because Clyde was arrested by the Dallas County Sheriff's deputies for auto theft. Okay, so let's get back here now. Here we are. We know Bonnie. We know how she is. We see how Clyde was kind of growing up, a little bad guy. We know Bonnie likes bad boys. She's already married, still ain't divorced. She's been staying with a friend who was, she was unemployed while she was staying with a friend who was healing from a broken arm, right? So like, she was helping her, I guess. She meets this guy through her friend who just dropped by to see her, and they liked each other. Apparently they started, it says that for weeks, for a few weeks, so I'm assuming a couple weeks after they met, they had been spending time together. And then because he gets picked up by Dallas sheriffs, he goes to jail. Now here I'm gonna go back to these notes and we're gonna get into it now. So it says they met when Clyde was 20 and Bonnie was 19 when they met through that mutual friend. And like we said, after their little hanging out and stuff like that, he got picked up. Let me make sure I have this right. Okay, yeah. It was Dallas County Deputy Bert Wisnad was his name, I guess, the one that picked him up. And he was convicted of auto theft. He winds up escaping from the McLean County Jail in Waco, Texas. I didn't even know they were anywhere in Waco when I had first heard about all of this stuff, you know? So he gets picked up by a Dallas deputy. Somehow makes it to the county jail in Waco, Texas. And actually escapes from the Waco, Texas jail using a gun that Bonnie smuggled in. Guys, did you hear that? This 19-year-old girl went to go see her boyfriend in Waco, Texas, where I'm assuming that they transported him from Dallas, smuggles a gun in. This is the 1930s. There's not all these other crazy things, but I'm sure that they were just, you know, letting them have a visit. She smuggles a gun in for him, and he escapes. Like, this relationship, I feel, went very quickly. They met, they spent time together, he's going to jail, she misses him, and she's young, he's young. He's like, give me a gun so I can get out, I'm gonna escape. And she provides it. That one got me, because it got me, but then at the same time I'm thinking, well, this is a 19 and 20-year-old, they're a little young and crazy, you know, I'm already in my 30s, so I understand what happens in that time, that era of time. I don't know if I would have smuggled in a gun at that time, but I'm assuming it was a lot easier. So he escapes, she smuggles the gun, he gets out of the Waco, Texas jail. He's actually recaptured in March. Now this, I don't know, let me see. It didn't give me oh yeah. So, okay. So in March 11th in 1930, he escaped the Waco, Texas county jail. He was recaptured March 18th. He was actually sent to Huntsville State Prison for that in April 1930. In September. Okay, so let's say he was recaptured March 18th, but then he was sent to Huntsville State Prison in April 1930. In September, he was assigned to go to the, I think it's Eastham. It's E-A-S-T-H, Eastham, A-M, Eastham Prison Farm, until the age 21. So, now, mind you, he was recaptured after she smuggled a gun in jail. He's recaptured and he's sent to Huntsville. Now, mind you, what I know about Huntsville now is that it's always been a transfer unit. You can't stay there more than 2 years, and that this is a place where you go to get transferred to a bigger prison if you're going to have more than 2 years. So, I'm assuming this is what happened. He gets sent to the Eastham Prison Farm at age 21. Now, there at the Eastham Prison Farm, at the age 21, while he was there, he was known to have been sexually assaulted while he was in prison. Now, this is not something that was very spoken about now or ever has been, but this is something that does happen in jail. Prison. In jail too, but, you know. But it was said that he was sexually assaulted while he was there, in that prison, specifically in that farm prison, and he retaliated by attacking and killing the tormentor with a pipe. So while mind you, he's 21, he's very young. Prisons have people who are going to be there for life. You know, this kind of hit me because I was like, oh my God, this young kid goes to jail, he gets switched to these prisons, and I mean, he's fresh meat to these people who have been in jail for years and are never going to get out, you know? And from the pictures that I've seen him, in the photos that they have of him, he was a good looking kid, you know? So they say he was sexually assaulted, and then I'm assuming that the person who did it was constantly tormenting him about it. It doesn't say how many times he was assaulted, it just said he was assaulted. but at this point in time where I'm reading, it says that he retaliated by attacking the person who abused him, and he killed him with a pipe, crushing his skull. That's what it says. Where he got the pipe, I don't know. All I know is he was sexually assaulted while he was in prison in the Eastham Prison Farm, and I mean, I think he just did what I think any normal man would have done, but I don't think people understand what happens to a man when that happens, you know? So I can definitely say that he didn't have to worry about that anymore. He took care of it in the jail with a pipe, and he attacked and killed him and crushed his skull in. So this was considered to be his first murder. So a lot of people think that, you know, the murders happen on the road and throughout these robberies, but everybody he robbed, he never really killed in the beginning, you know? When he gets to this prison and he gets R-A-P-E-D, I don't really like to say that word either, but sexually assaulted, S-A-'d, I don't know what word you guys prefer, but what's appropriate is he was S-A'd, he killed this guy, and this was actually considered to be his first murder in jail. See, that does something to somebody. When somebody takes your manhood and then, I mean, he obviously kills this man, you know, which is what they say was his first murder. That does something to you, you know. He did it in prison too, so I mean, I really doubt that they had therapy or anything like that back in the day for them there. Let's see. To avoid, we'll say this was considered to be his first murder. Another inmate who was already serving a life sentence claimed responsibility. Now, when they say that, they mean by the murder. They claimed the murder. So I'm assuming somebody knew that he had got SA'd, and after he killed him with his skulls, one of the guys who was already in jail for life took the blame. So I'm assuming no charges were brought towards him. But this is what the story is. Now, it says to avoid hard labor in the fields, mind you, this is a farm prison, Clyde purposely had 2 of his toes amputated in a late January 1932. Mind you, he's still young. I'm assuming he could heal fast. In our 30s, things slow down, but you know, he's still in his early 20s. But I thought that was kind of funny because to avoid hard labor in the fields, he purposely had 2 of his toes amputated in late January of 1932. It says either by another inmate or by himself. Only he knew the truth, but the prisoners just knew that he had 2 of his toes amputated. It says, okay, so they think they're saying that either it was done by somebody else or he did it by himself. Now, because of this, he walked with a limp for the rest of his life. 2 toes off his foot. It's a little imbalanced there, you know what I'm saying? But they say he walked with a limp. He wasn't hopping, but you know. However, without his knowledge, his mother had already successfully petitioned for his release, and he was set for free in 6 days after his intentional amputation. So, mind you, he amputated 2 toes, had no idea that his mom was already on the, you know, petition for his release, and he was about to be freed 6 days after he injured himself. He was paroled from the Eastham Farm Jail. What is it called? Sorry, the Eastham Prison Farm. I don't know why I get those mixed up, but okay. He was paroled from there on February 2nd, 1932. Now, he's a little bit harder and a bitter criminal now because he's been physically hurt. He's taken life, not been held accountable for it, and has also somehow amputated 2 toes. There's questionable whether he did it or somebody else did it. I don't know if I could do it myself. I don't know if I could. I think maybe he had somebody do it, but you know, you never know. It's prison. So he gets out on parole. Now, like I said, he's out. He's not the same person that he was when he went in. He's not the same person that he was when he met Bonnie the first time. When he met Bonnie, he was doing, you know, minor things. And then he goes to jail, prison, and these things happen. Mind you, he wasn't in jail for that long, but the time that he was there and the time that he spent there, that things that happened to him change him. So now he's a little bit harder, a little callous in his heart, you know. It says, yeah, it's the same thing I said, you know, he's just not the same person when he got out. One of his fellow inmates, Ralph Fultz, was quoted to say that he watched Clyde change from a schoolboy to a rattlesnake. You see what I mean when I say, like, when he went in, he was a little lover boy to Bonnie, and he was like, okay, I'm gonna go to jail, do my time, you know, whatever, and things happen. Things happened to him that he didn't expect that were gonna happen in a short time that he was in prison, he was in prison. And now he's out, and this guy who was apparently in prison with him, says that he watched this young schoolboy change into this rattlesnake. And if anybody's from Texas, we know rattlesnakes, they're different things, you know. It says his, after being in that prison, he was robbing grocery stores and gas stations at the rate of outpacing 10 or so bank robberies. He also winded up having what they call the Barrow gang, which was a gang he started after getting out of prison. So post-prison, his criminal career winds up being that he's robbing grocery stores still, gas stations is the same, but at a far outpacing the 10 or so bank robberies too. And like I said, and to the Barrow gang is what they called it that he had started. His favorite weapon was the M1918 rounding automatic rifle. It was considered to be called the BAR, B-A-R, but that's what it was for. It was for the M1918 rounding automatic rifle. I just want to make sure I see that right because I don't have my glasses on so I can see you guys because of my glares. I don't want to be saying the wrong word for the gun. According to, according to John Neal Phillips, Clyde's goal in life after being in prison and all that stuff happening to him, was not to gain fame, not to gain fortune. Like, that wasn't what he was wanting at this point. He was wanting to, let me see. Okay, so he didn't want fame or fortune. It was more of what it's explained to be. Let me just make sure I say this right. His goal was not to have fame or fortune from robbing banks, you know what I'm saying, but to seek revenge against the Texas prison system for the abuse that he had sustained while serving time. Let that sink in, guys, because many people are still having that problem in Texas with the prisons. When I say that this kid gets essayed and comes out a hardened person, a worse person than what he was in the beginning, when he came in, he wasn't even in prison that long, and he had so much happen to him that he grew up and then became this really awful, callous person. I wouldn't say awful in the sense of like, I mean, because he loved her, you know, but I'm just saying like in the sense of just hating people. Like, he did all these things, and when somebody asks him why did he do it, did he want fame, did he want fortune, he said, no, I'm doing it to seek revenge against the Texas prison system for the abuse that he sustained while serving time. That was what was said. The injury slowed him down physically, of course, the toe. We're talking about the toe part. But he knew what he was doing there, you know what I'm saying? That was a farm area, he had to do some work, and he wanted to do it. Now, it does say the injury slowed him down physically, making it harder to outrun law enforcement and limiting his mobility during many of his robberies. So his limp, you know, walking without the two toes sometimes gave him a disadvantage because he was having to run from police and things like that, and he had a limp. So that one was self-injured. So can't really blame anybody but himself, Mr. Clyde. Let's see. I thought it was just so important to make sure that I told you this because I had no idea that he had even ever said that about, you know, about making it a point to have revenge against the Texas prison system for the abuse that he had sustained while serving time. I am a counselor for people who get out of prison, and I'm a counselor in general, but I get people like that a lot, you know, and the things that I've heard that happen change people. And in the 1930s, it seems like it still hasn't changed. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to keep going. Let's see. We talked about how they first met. Let's see. Okay, we're going to get into these crazy things that they did together. We know how they met. We know who he was. You know who she was. You know what happened to him when he was in jail. She helped him escape. He goes back to jail. Now here we are. He's out of prison doing these small little robberies and things like that. Now, we're going to go up to... I've got the Barrow gang notes, and I just want to make sure I give you the right ones. I'm gonna give you some highlights. We'll start here. We'll do 1932 early robberies and murders. Okay, so after Clyde is released from prison in February 1932, he and that guy Ralph Fultz began a series of robberies, primarily of stores and gas stations. Their goal was The goal was to collect enough money for the firepower to launch a raid against the prison they were at. Now, mind you, Ralph is the guy who... Let me make sure I say this right. Ralph was the guy... Yeah. Ralph was the guy who was locked up with him, who says that he watched him change from a schoolboy to a rattlesnake. So, apparently he gets out... And here they go, robbing stores and gas station. And the goal for them two was to collect enough money to have enough firepower to launch a raid against that prison. On April 19th, Bonnie and Fultz were captured in a failed hardware store burglary. So, let me make sure I have this right. I want to make sure I have this right on my notes before I tell you guys. Okay, so Bonnie and him were captured in a failed hardware store burglary. And this was in Kaufman, which they had actually intended to steal firearms. So so Bonnie was actually released from jail after a few months when the grand jury failed to indict her. So... I thought that was kind of crazy because that guy Fultz was tried, convicted, and served time. He never rejoined the gang after that, but Parker wrote poetry to, Oh my God. Bonnie winds, she just, while she was locked up for those few months, she wrote poetry to pass the time, apparently is what people say. And while she was in that Kaufman County jail, once she got out, she was actually reunited with Clyde within a few weeks of her release. So them two I'm assuming somewhere Clyde was in this, but Clyde, I guess, wasn't caught with them. He goes to jail. Clyde's out. She does a couple months. The other guy gets in trouble. They forget to indict her. She was part of it. They let her out, and then a couple weeks later, she's back with Clyde. Now, mind you, this goes into that Barrow gang that they talk about, like there was a couple people in his little crew and they called it a gang. You know, of course she was part of it. Let's see. Let's see where we're at. August 5th, Raymond Hamilton and Ross Dyer, I think is how you say his name, were drinking moonshine at a county dance. And this is Stringtown, Oklahoma, when a sheriff and a deputy approached them in the parking lot. And Clyde and Hamilton opened fire, killing the deputy and wounding the sheriff. Oh wow. Okay, so the deputy was one of the first law officers that the Barrow gang had killed. that would be considered their first one. That during that time when they were drinking moonshine, they were approached. They eventually murdered nine more sheriff deputies. Some sheriffs, some deputies. But there was definitely 9 lawmen that were killed by that gang. On October 11th, they allegedly killed Howard Hall at his store during the robbery in Sherman, Texas. Though some historians consider this unlikely. This was considered to be one of the murders by them. It continues to go, let's see. W.D. Jones had been friends with the Barrows family, which is Clyde's family, since childhood. He joined Bonnie and Clyde's Barrow gang, and on Christmas Eve 1932, at the age of 16. This guy was 16. They were already 19, 20, 21, something like that. They're already old. They were in their like later years, you know, like I was thinking they were in their 20s already. This kid's 16 years old, and he just decides, oh, I'm gonna join. Let's go. Then again, she got married at 15. I can't really say too much. This is the 1930s. Let's see. And the 3 left to Dallas that night. So Christmas Eve, 1932, W.D. Jones, who was a friend of Clyde's family, winds up joining their crew at 16. And all 3 of them, Bonnie, Clyde, and him, go to Dallas. The next day, Christmas Day, 1932, W.D. Jones, Clyde, they murdered Doyle Johnson, a young family man who's while stealing their car in Temple, Texas. Clyde killed another Tarrant County deputy. His name was Malcolm Davis in January 6, 1933, when Clyde and his childhood friend W.D. Jones wandered into the police trap set for another criminal. So Bonnie and his childhood friend actually accidentally wandered into a police trap for another criminal, putting Clyde in the position where he just decided to kill the deputy, who was apparently bothering him, I guess. The gang had murdered 5 people since April. Now let's go to 1933. Oh my God. In March 22nd, 1933, Clyde's brother Buck was granted a full pardon and released from prison. And he and his wife, Blanche, set up housekeeping with Bonnie, Clyde, and their childhood friend. Temporarily, it's like a temporary hideout. It gives you the address. According to the family sources, Buck and Blanche were there to visit. They attempted to persuade Bonnie and Clyde to surrender to law enforcement. So I guess when his brother gets out and the wife and him get together, they're going over there and they're, you know, creating this hideout for them, I guess, and they're like trying to convince them. Like the plan from the family was that they were going to try to convince them to turn themselves into law before things get bad, you know? And let's see. The group ran loud alcohol-fueled card games late into the night, and this is in a quiet neighborhood, you know. His wife, Blanche, recalled that they bought a case of beer every day. Let's see. The men came and went noisily all hours of the night. Clyde, actually, this was something that happened. Clyde accidentally fired his bar rifle accidentally in the apartment while cleaning it. No neighbors went to the house, but one reported suspicion to the police department, and this was the Joplin Police Department. The police assembled a 5-man force with 2 cars April 13th to confront what they thought were bootleggers living in that address. And the brothers opened fire. So not just Clyde, Buck too, his brother actually opened fire to the police, killing a detective, fatally wounding a constable. Bonnie actually opened fire with the bar, with the big gun that they had, the bar one we talked about earlier, as others fled, forcing the highway patrols to duck behind large oak trees. The .30 caliber bullets from the bar struck the tree, which caused splinters, forced into the sergeant's face. So while she's laying these big old buckshots out there to let them run out, like to everybody like run out, like this guy gets hit with splinters in his face, like deep splinters from the tree that he was standing by, you know? He was having to hide behind those things while she's shooting, and he actually got pretty bad splinters, apparently, is what they say. Let's see. Oh my gosh! So one of the guns, they entered 14 rounds in conflict with them, and one was actually struck Clyde, but it was deflected by his suit coat button. So actually he would have got shot, but his button like reflected it. So that was pretty weird for me when I read that one. It's like, what kind of buttons is he wearing? Let's see. One of them grazed Buck, his brother, ricocheting from the wall. The group escaped the police at the Joplin, but left behind most of their possessions at the apartment, including Buck's parole paper, 3 weeks old. Remember, he just got out of there. Some arsenal weapons, some handwritten poems by Bonnie were left behind, a camera with several rolls of undeveloped film. When the police developed this film, they found lots of pictures. Lots of pictures. I'm gonna tell you something. These pictures were the goods, apparently. I heard that some of them were of guns pointing, like them two, Bonnie and Clyde, pointing guns at each other, like, you know, taking pictures. And then some of them were little sexy photos, I'm assuming is what they say. They don't say it so, but they're like, you know, some of these were like sexually explicit photos of them, and they were definitely getting down, getting down, you know. Let's see. She even had one where she was cleaning her teeth with a pistol in her hand. And that one actually was apparently front page through some of the papers in America. Let's see. They also wound up getting this guy called John Dillinger and Pretty Boy Floyd was his nickname, or was the other guy's nickname. But the pictures that they got from those rolls, actually, like, they found new people that were hanging out with them, I guess. So they actually had some pictures of people that were with them. The group ranged from Texas as far north to Minnesota. Over the next 3 months, in May, they tried to rob a bank in Indiana and robbed a bank in Minnesota. They kidnapped Dillard Darby and Sophia Stone in Louisiana in the course of stealing Darby's car. So they were trying to steal a car, and they actually wound up getting hostages because they stole the car and they stole both of them. Let's see. Several events went on between 1932 and 1934, which they kidnapped police officers or robbery victims that they had. They usually released their hostages far from home sometimes, with money to help them return home. So I guess at this time they weren't killing people just randomly. They were just killing people, I guess, I'm assuming, that were in their way, law enforcement people, but people that they actually wanted up taking, like, hostage. They were actually known to, like, let them go, give them money to get home, because, like, they stole this guy's car and this girl was in it, apparently. They take the car, drive pretty far, and they're like, okay, you gotta get home some way, so they gave them money. So, like, I don't know how you would take that, but some of them got to live, you know? I'm happy. Let's see. I know that there was this crazy story. I'm going to get into that with you guys. Let's see. Just want to make sure I have it right. So, okay, so as stories start to happen in the headlines and people start to get to understand who the borrowing gang is, they're trying to say, like, you know, they shoot anyone. They don't hesitate to shoot anyone who got in their way, whether police officer or innocent civilians. At this time, they're saying that the people who were committing the murders were the brother Clyde, Jones Hamilton, and Henry Methvin, I think is his name, which is the gang, part of the gang. Eventually, the cold-bloodedness of their murders opened the public's eyes to see the reality that, you know, these people are killing just a lot of people, you know? That's pretty much what led to their everybody wanted them to get caught, because now they're starting to see it's not just police officers they're killing civilians sometimes. It tells you that they let some of them go, but at the gang got worse and things started happening. They're saying that they just started killing everybody, like nobody was safe, and that's what I think scared people. And when now people are starting to get scared, the public wants them to be arrested. Some of them didn't care, some of them were just kind of rooting it on. Let's see. Okay, so at one time, let me see. Okay, the photos entertained the public for a time. Of course, you know, they can only do so much. But the gang was actually like really desperate and disconnected. Like things were going on in between the gang, you know what I'm saying? They're starting to get a little pressure on them, as they describe by Buck's wife, Blanche. One of the times that she got a letter from her husband with their new notary, their daily lives became more difficult. Yeah. Their lives became more difficult because they were having to, you know, hide from everybody, because they're more known to, all these pictures of them are being posted on these newspapers saying that they're very dangerous, people are getting scared, so now everybody who sees them is like trying to get them caught, you know, or, you know, it's a lot of pressure for them. Okay, so so they start to like literally, like they know that they are having to watch themselves around the clock now, because they're starting to see what the media is turning them into. Or not the media, the newspaper's turning them into. So in between the gang, they start fighting and having disagreements and things like that. They say when Jones was driving, when he and Clyde stole a car belonging to Darby in late April, and he used the car to leave the others, he stayed away until June 8th. It says that Clyde failed to see a warning sign at the bridge under a construction on June 10th while driving with Jones and Bonnie. So Bonnie and Clyde were driving with Jones, and he fails to see a sign where there's this bridge, right? This is the one I'm talking about. This was so crazy. He fails to see the sign. They're driving on the bridge. There's construction on the bridge, and it's him, Jones, and so Bonnie, Clyde, and their friend Jones. This is in Wellington, Texas, and the car flips into a ravine. And the sources, some people disagree whether or not there was gasoline. It was a gasoline fire, or if it was, what was it? I want to just make sure I say this right. Okay, or the acid from the car battery under the floorboards. But what happened was, when the car flips into the ravine, because, you know, he didn't see the sign, the bridge hits the ravine, right? Okay. People kind of disagree on how this happened to Bonnie, but Bonnie ended up getting third-degree burns, and there's questions of whether it was the gasoline and fire, or if it was the car battery, the acid from the car battery under the footboards. I would naturally have assumed that it was the car battery's acid, because, I mean, she's there, it flips, acid. It's more likely for the acid to fall on her first before the fire starts, you know? So, like I was saying, I naturally, my thought would have been, because, like, Miss Monica works on cars, and I know about them old cars too. I've checked out those old cars. I would think that when the car tipped over on the ravine, I would have naturally, as a mechanic back then, thought that it was the acid, because the way they explained this, that what happened to her leg, is crazy. I'm going to go into detail right now about that, but I want to make sure I said that correctly. So people speculated whether it was the fire or the battery acid from under the floorboard. But she actually sustained a third-degree burn to her right leg. Now, this was so severe, they say that the muscles contracted, and it caused the leg to draw up. Now, Jones, the guy that was with them, right, Jones, he observed she had been burned so bad, none of them thought that she was going to survive that. Like, nobody thought she was going to live. The hide on her right leg was gone. Just gone. from her hip down to her ankle, guys. From her hip. Imagine this. You're in a car with your man and a friend. You know y'all are in trouble. You don't see the sign. Y'all flip in a ravine. All of a sudden, you're up in your right leg from your hip to your ankle. Dear Lord. The way that Jones explains, like, how the height on her right leg was gone from her hip to her ankle. That's her whole leg. There's only foot and ass left. God, forgive me. I don't mean to... We're all adults here. I could say the word ASS, but still. That's all she had left, right? But the way it says is that he could see bones in certain places. Like, that's how bad her 3rd-degree burn was. Like, he could see bone. And the way that they explain how awful these burns were, like, nobody thought she was going to survive. Now, let's see. It says... okay, so at this time, she couldn't even hardly walk. She was either hopping on her good leg or was carried by Clyde. They got help from a nearby farm family that they kidnapped, of course. And this was Callsworth County. Let's see. So while they were there, what is this? Okay, wait, hold on. So they got help from a nearby farm family. Then they kidnapped Carlsworth County Sheriff Corey and City Marshal Paul Hardy, leaving them handcuffed to a barbed wire to a tree outside Oklahoma. The three, so the three of them rendezvoused with Buck and Blanche again, and hid in a tourist court nearby Fort Smith. So them three, after this accident, they actually get back in with Buck and his wife, right? And now then they wind up staying in Arkansas. It says nursing Bonnie's 3rd-degree burns. So she didn't go to a hospital, guys. She was nursing herself. They were nursing her burns. Buck and their friend Jones, they robbed and murdered town marshal Henry Humphrey in Alma, Arkansas, and they fled. They had to leave despite Bonnie's bad condition. Like, she's got bone hanging out and she's just nursing it while they go do some crime, and then they leave because she can't stay, and then she's, even in her crazy condition, you know. Let's see, they wind up staying in July 1933. They check into this, it's called the Red Crown Tourist Court, which is what they would have said like a two brick cabin joined by a garage, and the gang actually rented both of the things, you know. And let's see, there was actually a tavern, was a very popular restaurant on the Missouri Highway in Pachaloma. They seem to go out of their way the gang seemed to go out of their way to like draw attention, but you know, I guess at the restaurant should be. It says Blanche registered the party of 3 guests. So they had Blanche, which is Buck's, I guess, wife. They have her go get, you know, sign up the information and everything. She says she has 3 guests, so that's why they want both rooms. And it's 5 of them in the gang right now, you know. And it says that they backed that the owner Neil Hauser of the Red Crown Taurus had noticed that when he looked out the window that they were driving back. They were driving the vehicle like back in first to like get a quick getaway. She only registered 3 guests, and they backed the car in, so it kind of looks like a gangster style of a quick getaway if you got to get out of there, you know. It says that Blanche paid for their cabin with coins rather than bills, and they did the same thing later when they bought 5 dinners and 5 beers. The next day, he noticed that his guest had taped newspaper over the windows of the cabin. Blanche again paid for 5 meals with the coins. Her outfit kind of looked a little different. Also attracted attention. They were not typical attire for women in that area, so she definitely looked different, you know. Eyewitnesses still remember them 40 years later now. Like, people still, like, 40 years after this happens, they still remember them being there. Like, the town people. It says that he winds up telling the highway patrolman about the group. It says Clyde and Jones went into town to purchase bandages, crackers, cheese, and some stuff for her burns, for Bonnie's burns, right? It says the druggist contacted the sheriff, so I'm assuming the pharmacist or whoever they were getting the stuff from calls the sheriff, who put the cabins under surveillance. And then I guess the Oklahoma, Texas, and Arkansas law enforcement had a watch for strangers seeking such supplies out because of the burns that she had sustained, I guess. And they were saying, look out for these people who are doing things. And, I guess it had been just pushed around. Like, if you find people who are looking for this stuff, like, call the police. And the guy did. The drugstore guy did. And then it says that they led a group of officers towards the cabin July 20th, 1933 at 11 p.m. with Tommy guns. Wow. It says in the gunfire there were 40 calibers, Tommy guns, no match for borrower's caliber bar. Yeah, that's for sure. Stolen on. Okay, so this time, so when the cops come this time, they actually escaped with bullets short-circuited. So this time they're in the cabins. The drugstore guy calls the police, and they wind up, pulling this, I guess what you would call like SWAT back then. They called it, let's see, where is it? It says it right here. This is the way they say it. It was kind of funny. Okay, so the armored car. So the car with people who had lots of armor and, I guess what we would call SWAT now. Now, at this time, in the shootout, somebody actually shoots the armored car. Let me see, make sure I say this right. The gang ended up escaping because there was a bullet. When a bullet short-circuited the horn on the armored car, the police officer mistook it for like a ceasefire. You know what I'm saying? Like a signal. Like, oh, okay, wait. He popped my horn. Like, oh, there's bullets flying. So now here, that's how they wanted to gain away here. Like, this guy winds up thinking that who's driving, like, oh, okay, we gotta stop. So he stops. So they don't continue. So then they don't even pursue the retreating of the vehicle that they were in. They literally stopped in their tracks, I guess. They thought, it was a ceasefire. So like, okay, so stop. We'll stop. And they got away. That's how it happened this time. Now, this time, the gang had evaded the law, but Buck had been wounded by a bullet. Mind you, this is his brother. That was blasted a large hole in the bone of his forehead that exposed his injured brain. Blanche was also nearly blinded by glass fragments, apparently, in this gunfight, right? Okay, now, mind you, I had no idea all this happened within that year. It says they camped out at Dexfield Park in an abandoned amusement park near Dexter, Iowa. On July 24th, 1933, Buck was sometimes semi-conscious. He even talked and ate, but his massive head wound just lost a lot of blood, where it was so severe that even like Clyde and his friend Jones dug a grave for him. They didn't think he was gonna make it. So while he got hit in the forehead, he's over here semi-conscious. He's able to talk and eat, but they're, as his brother and his best friend over here, I guess, in crime, they even dug him a grave thinking that one day he wasn't gonna survive, because literally, they dug a grave for him thinking he was gonna die, They're literally just taking care of their own wounds, and he's sitting here semi-conscious up and down. They don't know if he's gonna die or live or what, so I guess just to save time, they dug a grave for him just in case. It says residents around noticed their bloody bandages, and officers determined that the campers were the Barrow gang. So obviously they looked pretty bad. Let's see. Local police officers at that time, approximately 100 spectators surrounded the group, and the borrowers soon came under fire again. So here they are, another fight with them, another gunfight. Bonnie and Clyde and Jones escaped on foot. Now, mind you, they were camping. They escaped on foot on this one. Buck was shot in the back, and he and his wife were captured by the officers. So Buck and his wife were captured in this one when they were camping. Everybody else they took off. But it says Buck died of his head wound and a pneumonia after surgery 5 days later at King Daughters Hospital in Perry, Iowa. Whew. So he lost his brother now. Now it's him, Jones, and Clyde. So it's Bonnie, Clyde, and Jones. The next 6 weeks remained in a range of, I think they were around West Colorado, North Minnesota, Southeast Mississippi. Yet, of course, they continued to commit robberies, armed robberies, of course. They would restock their essentials, food, drinks, water, armor, guns, and ammo. Let's see. They actually robbed an armory on August 20th in Plateville, Illinois, acquiring 3 bars, handguns, and large quantities of course, ammunition, So now they have 3 bars, those big guns, and then they have lots of handguns too, just in case, and lots of ammunition when they robbed this guy. By September, the gang was at risk to run, by early September, they actually risked themselves to run to Dallas, go back to Dallas to see their families. For the first time in 4 months, they all decided, we're going to go to Dallas. We're going to make a run, try to get in there, without nobody knowing. It says Jones parted company with Bonnie and Clyde, continuing to Houston, where his mother had moved. So Jones went to go see his mother. He was arrested there without incident, November 16th, and returned to Dallas. So he didn't fight. He didn't fight back, Though, let's see, through autumn, Clyde committed several robberies with small-time local accomplices, while his family and Bonnie tended to her medical needs and her, So I'm assuming while he was doing these robberies with local people, she was tending to her wounds. On November 22nd, they narrowly evaded arrest while trying to meet with family members near Sowers, Texas. Dallas Sheriff Ted Hinton laid in wait nearby. As Clyde drove up, he sensed a trap and drove past his family's car, at which point the deputies stood up and opened fire with machine guns and a bar, which was one of the big guns too. The family members in the crossfire were not hit, but the bar bullets passed through the car, striking the legs of both Bonnie and Clyde. They escaped later that night. Let's see. So in that case, they were gonna go see his family, but nobody got killed in that crossfire. But them two both got hit in the leg. Mind you, she already has a burn on one of her legs. I can only imagine which one it hit. It doesn't tell us which one it hit, but one of them hit her leg too. Let's see. November 28th, at Dallas, grand jury delivered a murder indictment against Parker and against Bonnie and Clyde for the killing in January of that year, nearly 10 months earlier. Let's see. It was actually Bonnie's first time to have a warrant out for murder. So in November, they finally put the warrant out for both Bonnie and Clyde from a murder that happened in January. This is going to be her first warrant for murder ever. Let's see, 1934. In January 16th, 1934, Clyde orchestrated the escape of Hamilton Methvin and several others from the Eastham breakout. Okay, so here it is. In January 16th, 1934, he actually did what he said he was going to do. He orchestrated an escape for one of his friends, right? But for several others that were in that prison that he was actually in at one time. It says the brazen raid generated negative publicity for Texas, and Clyde seemed to have achieved what historians suggested was his overriding goal: revenge of the Texas Department of Corrections. So when he got out and he was saying, "Oh, we're gonna save money with that other guy, Fitz or Fultz or whatever his name was," he winds up accomplishing later on to get one of his other friends out. It wasn't even the guy that guy. It was a different friend. So it says the Barrow gang member Joe Palmer shot Major Joe Croson during his escape. Croson died a few days later in the hospital. This attack attracted the full power of the Texas federal government for a manhunt for Bonnie and Clyde. As Croson struggled for his life in prison, Chief Lee Simmons reportedly promised him that all persons involved in the breakout would be hunted down and killed. So now they're on a manhunt. You know, this big old thing happened, and now they're saying that anybody who's caught that left that prison will be shot and killed. Doesn't matter, dead or alive, they want them. But they don't mind them shooting them. All of them eventually were, except Methvin, which was the guy that they were actually there to get out, who preserved his life by turning on the gang. So they accomplished this big old escape. Methvin was the one that they went there to go get. They wind up killing somebody, one of the people there, like who was working there. And then the guy who goes on the manhunt for them says, "We're going to get them all, and we're going to kill them all." Right? Then they wind up actually succeeding in doing all that for the people who escaped. But the only person that did not get away was the guy that was supposed to be getting out, because Bonnie and Clyde were getting him out, Mr. Melvin. And Mr. Melvin. But he winds up preserving his life, not being shot and killed, by turning on them. And he sets an ambush for Bonnie and Clyde. So the Texas Department of Corrections contacted the former Texas Rangers to persuade him to hunt down the Barrow gang. Now, this guy had already been retired. The guy that they actually caught, he was actually retired, but his commission hadn't expired. So, yeah. So he accepted the assignment. This is where the Texas Highwaymen come in. So there's a movie about them too. I think it's on TikTok, Highwaymen or something like that. I haven't seen it, but I am definitely going to see it after this. But okay, so this guy's supposed to be in like retiring. They're like, "Your commission's not done, but will you please go on the manhunt? This is what's going on. This is what they're doing." So he's like, "All right, I'll take it. Let's go." So then, let's see. He was given the specific task of taking down the Barrow gang. So like the whole gang. He gets the lowdown. Let's see. 20 years. So they knew him to be like somebody who was considered to be like a really good shot. He had lots of captures of people who had been like wanted and stuff. He definitely had. He was officially credited with 53 kills and has suffered plenty of wounds in capture of these people, of random people that throughout his life. I'm going to skip down a little bit so we can get to where we're going, because Lord knows this one was really, really long for me because it was so much happening in this 1 year. Let's see. Easter Sunday, April 1st, 1934, an intersection in Route 114 in Dove Road near Grapevine, Texas, South Lake. Highway patrolman and H.D. Murphy and Edward Bryant Wheeler stopped their motorcycle thinking a motorist needed assistance. Clyde and Melvin so they're saying now over here on April 1st, Easter Sunday, 1934, there is Clyde and what was to say, they would say it was either Melvin or Bonnie, opened fire with a gun and with a shotgun and a handgun, killing both officers. An eyewitness says that it was actually Bonnie who fired the fatal shot. They're saying that this is who it was, right? And that story went widespread because at this time they were thinking that maybe she was just like a hostage to him. And it says Melvin later claimed that he fired the first shot after mistakenly assuming that Clyde wanted the officer killed. And then it says that Clyde joined in, firing at that guy. So during the spring season of that grapevine killed, it was exaggerated, the perception of people, of the public, because of the eyewitness had said that they saw her kill him, and like it was said that she laughed about Murphy's head bouncing like a rubber ball, is what they say that she said. On the ground, okay, so like bouncing like a rubber ball as she shot him. So an eyewitness said that she shot him, and that she laughed about his head like banging like a rubber ball after she killed him. And then they're saying that police found a cigar butt with teeny teeth marks, supposedly those of Bonnie. Several days later, Murphy's fiance wore her intended wedding dress to his funeral. So this guy was going to get married, and this police officer was going to get married, and his wife winds up wearing his wedding dress to the funeral, so it attracted a lot of photos in the newspapers and things like that. And I guess when this woman, this spectator person who sees it from a far distance, sees that it's her and starts to speak about it and say that she saw it, it winds up being this big thing, because at that time, like, everybody thought that she was just there. She just wasn't doing anything. So it really, like, changed for her, like, whatever she had for clemency had been changed, definitely reduced. You know what I'm saying? So public hostility was increasing for her because of what the spectator had said that they had seen, the person had seen as a witness. Let's see. So then, let's see. They kidnap a commerce police chief, Percy Boyd, crossing the state line of Kansas. Then they let him go, giving him a clean shirt and a few dollars, and a request from Bonnie was to tell the world that she did not smoke cigars. And Boyd identified both Bonnie and Clyde to the authorities, but he never learned Melvin's name. So they wind up going in to get these arrest warrants for Bonnie Clyde and a John Doe, which was Melvin. And I guess with everything going on in the media, like making her look bad, she told like this guy, like they got this guy, and she was trying to make sure, she's like, please tell them, like, I don't even smoke cigars. Melvin, remember, he says later on that he tells people that he's the one who shot that guy, but supposedly a spectator saw that it was her, and that's why the hostility from the public came from her. And so I'm assuming that's why they wanted to plan this guy to say that. Let's see, for the first time, Bonnie was seen as a killer and actually pulling the trigger, just like Clyde. Dallas Journal ran a cartoon. Oh my god, the Dallas Journal was known to have like ran this cartoon that had an electric chair, and the sign said reserved, and then adding the words Bonnie and Clyde. Even the newspaper had like a funny about it. Okay, now that we're gonna go into the ambush, I hope you have your snacks, because Lord knows I need water. This is all for you guys. We're gonna go into the ambush, okay? What happened? So now this time, remember, they have the warrants out for Bonnie and Clyde and John Doe, which would have been Melvin. Let's see. By May 1934, Clyde had 16 warrants outstanding against him for multiple counts of robbery, auto theft, escape, assault, murder in 4 states. What else? Plenty of other stuff. Exploiting the state line rule. So here they are. The gang. Okay, so now here they are. The gang centers itself on like their family visit now, right? For some reason they want to go see family again. So they were due to see Melvin's family in Louisiana. Okay, and mind you, everybody's got these warrants out, and he's part of the John Doe. He's the John Doe now. Okay, so Hammer and Barrow had this. Okay, so 2 of the guys who were looking for them had designated, or no, Yeah, right. They had designated Melvin's parents' residence as the rendezvous in case they were separated. So while they're going to go visit, they were supposed to go visit Melvin's family in Louisiana. Unbeknownst to people, they all, what does it say? Unbeknownst to Clyde and one of the other friends, Melvin's... What happened here? Hold on, let me make sure I say this right, because I'm a little mixed up here because my notes were a little scribbly. Okay, so the gang was in the so the gang's itinerary was centered on family visits, and they were due to see Melvin's family in Louisiana. Unbeknownst to Barrow and unbeknownst to Clyde and one of the friends there, they had designated Melvin's parents' residence to be the rendezvous in case anybody was to be separated. Now, Melvin had become separated from the rest of the gang in Shreveport. Hammer's pose was composed of 6 men, Texas officers, Hammer, Hilton, Elkhorn, BM. It gives you all these people here who were here. I remember those. Okay, on May 21st, the 4 members from Texas were in Shreveport when they learned that Bonnie and Clyde were planning to visit Ivy Melvin, which is his mom, Melvin's mom, that evening. So 4 of the members that were looking for them were in the same area that they were in when they found out Bonnie and Clyde were going to go see Melvin's mom. So they go and they wind up setting up an ambush along the Louisiana State Highway 154. It's south of Gisland towards Sales, something like that, right? Sales or something like that. That's what it's called. Now here, it says that all the people who were going to ambush them, like the four people there and a couple people that they had with them, they had recounted that the lawmen were in place by 9 p.m. Okay, they waited through the whole until the next day, which was May 22nd, with no signs of the perpetrators. Okay, no signs. Other accounts said that officers set up that evening of May 22nd, but it's the people who say that they knew what was going on, that they set up the day before, and then they waited. Now it says at approximately 9:15 a.m. on May 23rd, they were already still waiting in the bushes, ready, to give up. And they were like, you know what, maybe they're not coming, And then boom, here comes a truck. They say right when they were going to give up, they saw a vehicle approaching at a high speed. In their official report, they stated that they had persuaded Melvin to position his truck on the shoulder of the road that morning. They hoped Clyde would stop to speak with him, putting his vehicle close to the position where they were at to ambush him, right? And it says that the vehicle proved to be a V8 Ford with Clyde at the wheel, and he slowed down as they hoped. Was that right? The vehicle proved that the Ford V8 with Clyde at the wheel, and he slowed down as they hoped. Okay, good. The 6 lawmen opened fire while the vehicle was still moving. It says one of their people fired first, probably before any order to do so. Clyde was shot in the head and died instantly. He's driving. Remember that, guys. Shot in the head, dies instantly. From that guy's first shot, from the guy who shot on their side, his first shot was at him and hit him in the head, and boom, he dies instantly. It says they reported hearing Bonnie scream The officers fired about 130 rounds, emptying each of their weapons into the car. The two had survived severe bullet wounds and plenty in her third-degree wound before. So, with all their confrontation with the law, they had survived many wounds from bullets. So, on this day, Clyde was shot in the head. Bonnie screams. Bonnie and Clyde's wounds were proven to be fatal that day. According to a statement made by Hinton and Alcorn, which were the guys sent for them to go, catch him, each of his 6 officers had a shotgun and an automatic rifle and pistol. They opened fire with automatic rifles and then emptied before the car got even with them. Then used shotguns. There was smoke coming from the car and it looked like it was on fire. After shooting the shotgun, they emptied the pistols in the car, which had passed while it passed them. It ran into a ditch 50 yards away. Now, it almost turned over when they kept shooting at the car. They says it almost turned over. They kept shooting at the car even after it stopped. They said they weren't taking any chances. They knew that these people shot and they did not care. And so they emptied everything out that they had. 6 people while it keeps going, and while they're getting up there, they're still shooting because they don't want to get shot. They don't want to get killed. These are people that they know kill cops. They even had film footage taken by the deputies immediately after the ambush showing 112 bullet holes in the vehicle, of around 1/4 struck the couple. Okay, so here they did not survive this. It was said too that, while this had happened, it says, I wrote this down too over here. When the coroner I'm going to get into what happened, but I'm going to tell you that when the coroner winds up doing the autopsy, 26 bullets were in Bonnie, and Clyde had 17 shots, and both of them had multiple shots to the head. Clyde definitely had the one that fatally shot him, and then they just everywhere, but they were said that multiple, what was counted was 17 shots in Clyde and 26 shots in Bonnie, and they were all over and in the head area as well. So now this is what happened, So now after this happens, I'm just giving you what the coroner says, but before the coroner even got there and this was all over, people from the town started coming. When I read this was crazy, guys. Like, bear with me here because this was like, what? So they get, they wind up knowing that, they're dead. Now, it says that the person who was embalming their body was saying that it was really hard because they had so many bullet wounds in them. That's why I was telling you guys how many bullet wounds it was said that the coroner said that they had. And the crazy thing about this is that the defend officers inspected the vehicle and discovered an arsenal, including a stolen automatic rifle, sawed-off shotgun, things like that. Okay, let's see. One of them said, I hate to bust the cap on a woman, especially when she's sitting down. However, it would have been her or us. We knew, nobody was really proud to have to shoot a woman like that, but they knew that it would have been them or her. She was going to shoot at them. It says that so 2 of the guys were left to guard the bodies, but they lost control because the jolting of curious people came around and started to realize who they were, and then all of a sudden started to start cutting Bonnie's hair off. Like, think about this. Okay, this crazy thing happens, a shootout happens, and the people who are coming around from the town are like, oh my god, it's them, oh my god, and all of a sudden everybody wants to get souvenirs. People were picking up shell casings. They literally had people okay, so this is the thing. 2 guys were left to watch the bodies, right? The main 2 guys. And it said that they didn't know, like, they were, like, just I don't want to say ambush, but like they were literally in shock about how many people were there. But then the fact that they got, like, they literally started to try to get souvenirs. One lady even was cutting, they were cutting, let me see, let me make sure I say this right. One woman cut bloody locks off of Bonnie's hair and pieces from her dress, which were eventually sold as souvenirs. One of them returned to find a man trying to cut off Clyde's trigger finger, and he was just the cop was just so sickening about what was going on, because I guess they didn't realize that these people were so famous that people were going to try to be taking pieces of them. Like Bonnie's hair is being cut, her dress is being cut, things are being cut so that they can have souvenirs. They said people were picking up shell casings, and then when they see this guy trying to come and take his trigger finger, they're like, oh, no. So they start having to try to get people away. And then it was even said that okay, so they where's this guy? I remember this. Okay, one eager man even had opened his pocket knife and was reaching into the car to cut off Clyde's left ear. This is how bad people wanted souvenirs. They wanted trigger fingers and ears. Now, mind you, he didn't get to do it. The cops were there, you know, so they had to have people, like, they had to ask people to help control the circus of the atmosphere, because people were going that far to get souvenirs. And so they winded up having the Ford towed with the dead bodies still inside. And back then the furniture store were also funeral parlors in the back. So in downtown Arcadia, Louisiana, there was a preliminary embalming was done by Bailey in a small preparation room in the back of a furniture store, which was common, of course, like for that area. They were known to be undertakers as well. I thought that was kind of weird. I didn't know that. Now after reading this, I was kind of like, what? Like, so you go to the furniture store and in the back there was a room for them to embalm. I just thought it was a little weird for me when I heard that one, but you know, back then it was different. It says population of northwest Louisiana town reportedly swelled from 2,000 to 12,000 within hours. Curious people arrived by train, horseback, carriage, plane. Beer was actually normally sold at that time for 15 cents, but a bottle had jumped to 25 cents. Sandwiches quickly sold out. Clyde's dad, Henry, went down to identify his son's body, and they said that he sat weeping in one of the rocking chairs in the furniture section. I don't think that would be easy for anybody, no matter how bad your parents, or no matter how bad your kid were, like it's your kid, to have to see his son full of bullets and then shot in the head. I think that would be hard for anybody, you know? So they say, I mean, I guess at that time, I guess the furniture store had rocking chairs. They said he weeped there for a while, you know? But then they said that H.D. Darby was an undertaker at the McClure funeral parlor. And let's see. So that when the Barrow gang had kidnapped a couple of these people, they came to identify the bodies as well. Bonnie reportedly had laughed when she discovered that Darby, their friend Darby that they wind up was in the gang with them, apparently he was an undertaker. And it was said that, like, at one time when Darby and Bonnie were talking one time, that she kind of was joking around with him when she discovered that he was an undertaker. She was like, she made a remark saying, like, maybe someday you'll be working on me. And the funny thing is, Darby did wind up assisting Bailey in the embalming part, which was said to be really hard to do because of all the bullet holes. So the joking around that she had made, the comment that she had made to Darby as a joke, you know, when he was in the gang and they were hanging out one time, she found out he was an undertaker, she winded up telling him that, and he actually did wind up assisting in embalming her. So I thought that was kind of something that nobody else knew too, you know. It wasn't something I knew. It wasn't one of the details I knew, so. Let's see. Okay, so now the funeral comes, right? Now, Bonnie and Clyde had wanted to be buried together. Mind you, Bonnie is still married. What? She dead now, God forgive me, but like, she gone. She gone now at this point. Now she ain't married nobody. Now her husband's a widower. By then, you know, he's still got some life in him, but still. What I'm saying at this time is that they had wanted, their wishes were, when they were talking to their friends in the Bonnie and Clyde crew and the Barrow crew, they were talking about the Barrow gang. They were saying that if anything ever happened to them, they wanted to be buried together. Now, Bonnie's family was like, I don't think so. No. Mind you, she was still married, and when she died, her ring from her husband was still on her hand. So, I don't know what her mama was thinking, but her mama went in and was like, no. What we're not going to do is that. So, Bonnie's wishes was to be buried next to Clyde. But, no. It was impossible because her mother said no. Now, it was actually really hard for her mom and dad to even have a funeral for her because the crowds and things like that, you know, everybody wanted to try to get a look at her and stuff like that. Now, let's see. Her service was held May 26th at the Allen Campbell. Let me see, hold on. What did they say? She was in. Well, it was held in Dallas. I'm trying to figure out which funeral home it was, or which place it was. Well, either way, so her funeral ended up happening on May 26th. The biggest flowers that were ever came, they say, came from. Oh no! Look, they even said that cards were allegedly came from people that were in their crew at the time, like in their gang. Some of the cards that came from the crew. And then it says the largest floral tribute was sent by a group from the Dallas City newspapers, the Newsboys, the Dallas City Newsboys, because at that time the death of Bonnie and Clyde had actually sold 500,000 newspapers in Dallas alone. That's only in Dallas, mind you. There's other towns around Dallas that people knew about Bonnie and Clyde, but I guess the Dallas City Newsboys ended up sending the biggest floral tribute for them as a thank you, I'm assuming, for those 500,000 newspapers that they sold. I can only imagine how much they sold, you know, back around the area, just not in that area, but I mean just in Dallas was 500,000, and back then that was a lot. So let's see, Parker, she was buried in Fish Trap Cemetery. That's what it was. So Bonnie was buried in Fish Trap Cemetery, although her body was moved in 1945 to the New Crown Hill Cemetery in Dallas. I'm assuming maybe that place changed or something, but so yeah, her mom was like, no honey, you're not gonna be married next to that man. Now on May 25th, thousands gathered as well at the Dallas funeral home, hoping to see a chance of Clyde, where he was buried in the Western Heights Cemetery in Dallas next to his brother Marvin. Remember, Marvin passed away before he did from that headshot he had and the pneumonia. It says the Barrow brothers share a single granite marker with their names on it, and it says something that Clyde had selected a long time ago, gone but not forgotten. So I don't know, after hearing everything and then knowing that Bonnie was still married, and then I don't know, her mom didn't seem to be any type of religion that I had seen, but like after seeing what happened, getting to know the story, and then seeing that they were still separated in death, I now wonder as a mother, like, because I'm a mom, you know, I think, was her mom like trying to just I don't know, honor her in one last moment and say you can't be buried next to a man you're not married to, you know what I'm saying? But it definitely was one of the best stories I got to read. Now this went on forever, I know, but guys, an hour and 33 minutes. I just want y'all to know, Bonnie and Clyde, young lovers, within a 2 or 3 year span, they went through some things. Bonnie lost half her leg. Clyde definitely has gotten shot plenty of times. Some of their gang members lived, some of them died. After the funeral, it says that the 3 people that were left from their gang actually died within like a certain amount of time. Let's see. Let me see real quick so I can give you this one. Is it? Somewhere around after they both were buried, the last few people winded up Okay, so it says that, okay, let me just make sure I give you the rest of this good stuff. So, it says that the National Insurance Company of Galveston, Texas paid the life insurance policies for both of them in full. Since back then there wasn't any rules about, you know, a payout if you were in trouble with the law or got in trouble by the law. So back then their insurance actually got paid out to both families. Okay, so it says here, 2 months after Bonnie and Clyde were killed, killed in, okay, 3 months after that, Pretty Boy Floyd was killed in Ohio. 1 month after that, Babyface Nelson was killed in Illinois. Now, as of 2018, Bonnie's niece, who was known as her last surviving relative, has been in petition and campaign to get her aunt buried next to Clyde. I have not had a chance to figure out if that happened or not, but that was the last thing that I read. So I hope you love this story. I hope it wasn't too tiring, and I hope that I didn't stutter and utter my words too much. So stay tuned for Miss Mary's ghost story this week, and I will see y'all next week. Peace, love, and happiness.